In this video, I want to walk through how students are going to be graded in Chemistry 161. I'm going to use a combination of what I think of as specifications, grading, and labor-based grading to assess student work. So let's talk about what that means, because it's not the traditional grading system that at least I experienced in my chemistry classes as a student. So to start with, all of our assignments are going to be graded with only 3 grades. It's either incomplete, it's complete, or it's proficient, which is like a B+ or A- level of work or better. It's like, yeah, you are completely proficient in this like learning goal. Good job. Complete is like less than B+ work. It's you completed the task as assigned. The work is at about a C or B- or B level. And incomplete is usually that not everything is done yet. And that's usually the only time that we really see students doing like worse than C level work, is when the instructions were miscommunicated or not completed, and it's just only partially done. And so there isn't going to be a point scale for each assignment. There aren't going to be bits like half a point or a point that you miss here and there for mistakes. Instead, we'll use a rubric or some other sort of communicated like way of differentiating these 3 grades for any of our assignments. So that's kind of one piece of the grading system. The other piece is that you can revise your work after I give you feedback on it. So that way you can learn on that same assignment and try it again. Some assignments are going to have infinite attempts and revisions, and these are sometimes not actually graded by me. So these are going to be really practice assignments. So anything in the introductory modules, and then our homework assignments, which will be online. They're a homework management system. And for each of the problems, you can retry them and retry them and retry them until you get them right. And my goal is that you'll practice chemistry, and that you'll practice chemistry enough to get to about, I can either say like everyone practices chemistry for 3 hours a week, or I could say, well, practice chemistry until you get about 85% of this set of problems correct. And that'll probably take you anywhere between 1 hour and 4 hours. So practice an amount that you need. Then we'll have these assessment assignments that are going to be like individual and group assignments to self-assess your knowledge so far and to challenge you as a group. And so those you'll be able to redo as well. Now, some assignments I think of as how I assess where you're at. And also they are more complicated. And so these assignments, you'll only have one opportunity to revise or retake them. And that'll be our lab assignments, our problem sets, and projects. So for all of these, they're larger assignments. You will complete them. I'll give you feedback. And if it's not at that proficient level, you can revise your work at one time rather than as many times as you want. And I'll give you lots of feedback, and you can talk to me and get help and things like that. But it'll just be limited. And that's to limit really the workload on myself in part. So grades are going to be then based on completing these assignments and demonstrating proficiency on a specific number of assignments rather than accumulating points. And this is only going to work if I give you really clear expectations for what proficient is and what complete is. So my goal is to try to be as crystal clear about that as I can. I'll use rubrics to help with that. If you ever feel like it's unclear, please let me know, because that is not my intention. And I will then work to clarify it. So how is this all going to kind of compare to a traditional grading system? So as I've said, usually in the traditional system, there's points for each assignment. And those points kind of add up to a total number of points, and you'll get a percentage of them, and that percentage will translate into a grade. Here, we're going to have a bunch of assignments, and you'll complete them, and the number that you complete will help you determine what your grade is. So in my system, we're going to have multiple opportunities for each assignment. You're going to give feedback that then helps you improve your performance on a current assessment, rather than using that feedback to inform and help you prepare for some later assignment, like a final exam. With this system, deadlines become inherently flexible. Everything assignment will have a deadline, but with revisions, it's just the deadlines don't have the same level of meaning and as they do in a system where you have just one attempt on an assignment. So in general, we see that kind of when comparing the two, students tend to either do like less work on one type of unit or one type of assignment, but still pass the course. Here, students really need to attempt most of the units in order to pass. And so it kind of makes that work for a C level grade in the class. It makes it a bit more work, admittedly. But your overall grade isn't going to be a percentage of points. Instead, you'll be able to predict it really, really easily. You'll just be able to know which assignments need to be completed or at a proficient level to get a specific grade. No matter what, though, I will always give lots of feedback, no matter what my style of grading system is. So I want to walk through the types of assignments that we'll be doing. First, we have our introductory assignments. These are here in our Start Here module, and it's just like setting a goal for your GPA, introducing yourself to the class, taking a safety quiz. We'll have a check-in too that kind of counts in this. These are kind of the smaller assignments that are just kind of about the logistics of keeping the class moving. Assessment activities are going to be graded as either complete or incomplete. They're weekly assignments that will have an individual and a group component typically, but they might vary. Usually there'll be a few short problems to kind of assess where you're at in terms of your understanding of the material, and that'll kind of help you focus what you study then later on. And then also kind of a challenge problem, usually with peers or a demonstration or something like that. And the goal is really just to identify misconceptions earlier and then give you some challenging concept to draw out questions. Because sometimes we don't even know what questions we have about something we're learning until we try something kind of challenging. Homework, these are practice problems. And this is going to be either complete or incomplete. And complete is going to be defined as an 85%. And that, I mean, this is somewhat arbitrary in a sense, but it's really just about practicing chemistry problems enough to start getting comfortable with the material. And so we set this at 85%. You can hit it. A lot of students, though, still try to get a 100% on the assignment because they want to make sure that they have all of the concepts down. There'll be 8 of these. Typically, they'll be for each chapter. In the beginning, you'll have 1.5 chapters covered in each homework problem. We have 8 labs this quarter. It's a lot. Each lab is going to be graded as either incomplete, complete, or proficient. Again, proficient's like an A-. And so here's a list of our lab assignments that we'll have, and you can find these in our class schedule as well. One component of the lab assignment is a pre-lab, which is a set of questions that demonstrate that you're prepared to conduct yourself safely in the lab. And so that means that you will have read the full lab assignment and procedure, and the questions are usually about that or about a calculation you're going to have to do quickly in the lab, and give you some practice with it beforehand. So that'll be kind of part of your complete, incomplete, proficient grade for your overall lab assignment that's turned in after lab, and that you won't really be able to tackle the lab until you do the pre-lab assignment. So these will have multiple components. Each lab assignment will have a pre-lab. It'll have what we call a data report. That's the part you're doing in class where you're recording observations and measurements. And then it'll have post-lab questions or sometimes calculations that you're doing. And all 3 of those equal 1 lab assignment. Problem sets. So these are another assignment that's graded incomplete, complete, or proficient. We'll have 3 of these during the quarter, and they're going to assess your ability to synthesize and apply the concepts that we've learned over the course of 2 to 4 chapters. So like the first one will cover chapters 1 through 4. These are challenging. They are meant to take a long time. You can think of them as a take-home exam, or you could call them a problem set and feel less anxious about the whole thing. But no matter what, you get a revision. And so the assignment itself is less about seeing what you can recall because they're open note, right? And you need to work on them on your own individually, but like you have all the resources for the class available to you. So it's not really about your recall. It's instead about like how you're using, how you understand the material and how you apply it. And so the process of completing the problem set, actually, I think of as a learning activity in and of itself. So at the end of working through a problem set, you should know the material better than when you started, is one of the goals of the assignment. Lastly, there's projects. These are optional. I have a list of different types of projects with rubrics. We can also make up a new type of project as well. They'll be graded as incomplete, complete, and proficient, and these help build up your grade. So if you need a bump to your grade, a project is how you would do it. And you would choose a project based on your communication style, honestly. The goal of it is for you to show me and demonstrate that you understand some part of our course really well, that you went in a little deeper on it, or that you applied it to something in the real world. So we'll have lots of types of these. There's papers, letters, infographics, presentations. If you want, I can even give you a multiple choice final exam for a project to boost your grade. Happy to do that. And we'll schedule that out ahead of time. So these kind of depend on you and what you think would work best for showing how well you understand chemistry. All right, those are all of the different types of assignments you're going to have. So how you're graded, this is my summary infographic, and it works great for my brain. Maybe it doesn't work great for your brain. If it doesn't, I've got another thing to look at too. But basically, we're going to start with an assumption that everybody in the class has a 3.1 on the first day. So we're all sitting at a nice, comfortable B. And if you complete the core like assignments for the class and revise them to be proficient, then you will end the class with a B, right? So that grade won't change if you just do the work of the class. Now, if you start missing assignments, then your grade is going to start dropping. So for each lab that you don't complete at all, you'll lose 0.3 of your GPA. So you'll go down to a 2.8. If you complete the lab, but you don't revise it to that proficient A- level, then you're going to subtract 0.1. Now you have a 3.0 in the class. If you don't complete a homework assignment, then your grade drops 0.1 GPA points. If you don't complete an assessment activity, and sorry, that says group assignment, that's incorrect, but an assessment activity, a weekly one, you'll drop 0.1 in your GPA as well. So if you kind of just like one way of thinking about that, like all those ways things drop, usually a 2.0 is what you need to move on to the next class. So you can hit that a 2.1 if you complete all of those weekly activities, you complete all of your homework, and you complete all of your labs except one, but you never revise any of the labs to have them be at that A- level. And so you would pass the class like you did the core work of like you did group activity, like you did these assessments, and you did practice problems, and you attempted the labs and completed them, but didn't actually do any grade building projects, didn't complete any of the problem sets, and didn't revise those labs at all. But you'd pass. Now, to get above that B, you're going to need to do a little bit more work, and that's really going to come in the problem sets and the projects. So for each problem set that you get a proficient on, you'll get a 0.3 bump. So the way to get a 4.0 is to do all the assessments, all the homeworks, all the labs, revise all the labs to proficient, and then do all three of the problem sets and revise them to proficient as well. And you're at a 4.0. You don't need to do a project. But let's say you just complete one of the problem sets, and then you would only get 0.1. And so maybe you're like, that was insanely hard, and I just don't want to do it. Instead, I want to make an infographic about, I don't know, stoichiometry and some specific chemical reaction. Then you could do that instead to bump up to a 4.0. So the thing about this system is it's really a choose your own adventure based on what types of assignments are actually challenging, which ones lend themselves to more readily demonstrate what you know. Like we all kind of express ourselves differently. And so you can kind of choose a pathway to the grade that you need that will work best for you. And if that seems too open-ended or feels confusing, I'm happy to help you navigate that and select a path to kind of try to get to the grade that you want. The real decision you need to make is deciding what GPA your goal is for the class. So you'll be able to track your grade. Canvas won't be able to handle it though. It can really only handle one type of grading system. And so I have a spreadsheet that, this is a picture of it, that will be given to everybody, that'll allow you to calculate your grade at any point, just based on what's complete and incomplete. So you'll see how assignments are graded in Canvas, and then you can just update the spreadsheet and you'll know what your grade is. You can also use this then to kind of like plan things out. That, oh, well, if I don't do this problem set, but I do these projects, or if I skip this lab, or if I skip this homework, and you can kind of play with it and play around and see what GPAs would be produced. Right here, it'll auto tally if you follow the directions in gray for how to input your grades in these white areas. It'll auto tabulate and calculate the GPA. So you just kind of like tweak it, and then it'll show you what it is. And I'll use the same spreadsheet to calculate your GPA. So we'll be working with the same information. Yeah, so that is how grading is going to work in this class. Please let me know if you have any questions. And I'm happy to discuss this at length. And thank you for watching this video and me walk through the way that I'm kind of organizing it in my head.